they should have been targeted. Go ahead.
You've expressed many times your frustration and disappointment with Putin, but there's no action since you took your office.
How do you know there's no? How do you know there's no action?
But
really?
Wait.
Who are you with?
I'm with Polish radio.
Okay. How do you know there's no action? Would you say that putting secondary sanctions on India, the largest purchaser outside of China, they're almost equal? Would you say there was no action? That cost hundreds of billions of dollars to Russia. You call that no action? And I haven't done phase 2 yet or phase 3. But when you say there's no action, I think you ought to get yourself a new job. Because if you remember, 2 weeks ago, I said, if India buys, India's got big problems. And that's what happened. So don't tell me about that.
So Donald Trump got visibly triggered during a disastrous Oval Office presser when he was confronted by reporters about various domestic and foreign policy disasters, particularly with regards to Russia and China. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. Now, Trump's tantrum here is interesting because he gets triggered over the idea that he's not a man of action or that he's soft on Putin. But the fact of the matter is that the war in Ukraine that Russia is waging has escalated on Trump's watch compared to where it was under President Biden in terms of the offensive that Russia is engaging in. Now, we're going to return to the Russia thing in just a second because let's just say a timeline has once again expired under Trump. 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, and then the 2 weeks expired, nothing happened. But I really want to focus on this part here, which is a bit of a follow-up to a story that we talked about the other day, which is that Trump's tariffs against India and his tariffs against China and his overestimation of his dynamic and influence on Vladimir Putin have caused some of the biggest foreign powers in this country, or in this world, I should say, India and China and Russia in particular, to unite at a summit in which it is being made abundantly clear that China is moving aggressively to use Trump's incompetence and terrible tariffs to basically reposition the global order. Now, we talked about that in a separate video. Trump reacted to it on Truth Social earlier today. He lashed out. He says, the big question to be answered is whether or not President Xi of China will mention the massive amount of support and blood the United States of America gave to China in order to help secure its freedom from a very unfriendly foreign invader. Many Americans died in China's quest for victory and glory. I hope they are rightfully honored and remembered for their bravery and sacrifices, of course, related to a military parade that China is engaging with respect to World War II. May President Xi and the wonderful people of China have a great and lasting day of celebration. Please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un as you conspire against the United States of America, Donald Trump. So Trump is triggered because he has been humiliated on the global stage by having Modi of India, Putin of Russia, and Xi of China, who represent billions of the American population, or excuse me, not the American, but the global population, basically signaling out in broad daylight on camera that they are working against the United States, or that they're starting to unite in a way which would separate them from reliance on the United States. This is disastrous ultimately for the United States, and it's happening on Trump's watch because of Trump. Okay. Now, Trump was asked about that summit at the press conference at the Oval Office.
We saw a dramatic picture where we saw the leaders of Russia and North Korea and China together. The first time the leaders of those three countries have been together in this sort of show of solidarity. You said that they're conspiring against the United States. What do you think they're conspiring to do? And given this, is it reason why you should slap or would consider slapping secondary sanctions on Russia if they're conspiring against the U.S. now?
Well, I've already done that with regard to India, and we're doing it with regard to other things. And I put out a truth last night. You saw that. And I was the one that brought it up. I said, they're only doing this. They're looking to, when they did what they did, I thought it was a beautiful ceremony. I thought it was very, very impressive. But I understood the reason they were doing it, and they were hoping I was watching, and I was watching. My relationship with all of them is very good. We're going to find out how good it is over the next week or two. I think that we helped China very much, as you know, when they talk about freedom. And I don't believe that, and maybe I'm wrong, I hope I'm wrong, but I don't believe that America, that the United States was acknowledged for helping China to gain its freedom. But perhaps that was just that was a sleight of hand. I mean, I was very surprised. I watched the speech last night. President Xi's a friend of mine, but I thought that the United States should have been mentioned last night during that speech because we helped China very, very much.
What was the
So again, he's spending a lot of time talking about how China should congratulate the United States for the role it played in liberating them from Imperial Japan. But again, the question that he was confronted with was, you accused them of conspiring against the United States, which, listen, I think is a fair assumption to make, but this is happening on Trump's watch, and Trump is the proximate reason why this is happening. His incompetence, his terrible tariffs, and you can tell he's triggered. He's like, they're doing this just so I was watching, and I was watching. Yeah, because this clearly pisses you off. This is humiliating for you. And he's struggling to grapple with it, and so he's trying to deflect to this idea that she should congratulate the United States. Probably not going to happen. Here's another clip.
Can you give us a sense of what the U.S. policy or what you're trying to achieve with the aircraft carriers, or the boats, I should say, in near Venezuela, and also the boat that you mentioned yesterday where 11 people were killed? What was found on that boat, and why were the men killed instead of taken into
On the boat, you had massive amounts of drugs. We have tapes of them speaking. It was massive amounts of drugs coming into our country to kill a lot of people. And everybody fully understands that. In fact, you see it. You see the bags of drugs all over the boat. And they were hit. Obviously, they won't be doing it again. And I think a lot of other people won't be doing it again when they watch that tape. They're going to say, let's not do this. We have to protect our country, and we're going to. Venezuela's been a very bad actor. They've been, as you know, they've been sending millions of people into our country, many of them Tren de Aragua, some of the worst gangs, some of the worst people anywhere in the world in terms of gangs.
Yeah, so one of the things that's not being talked about enough is the fact that Donald Trump has sent U.S. naval forces to Venezuela to intimidate Nicolas Maduro, the leader of Venezuela. And when, I think it was yesterday, there was a televisor recorded, and then it was released, a strike on a small boat by the United States. It struck this boat and killed 11 people. Now, these people are allegedly, or were allegedly members of Tren de Aragua, and they were drug smugglers. But the BBC, multiple investigations are looking at this. Like, and when I say investigations, I mean reporters are looking into this because, well, was this legal? Did you actually kill gang members? I mean, what was the legal predicate? Were these people who you claimed they to be? And was this legal at all? So just to discuss this a bit, U.S. strike on Venezuela drug boat. What do we know, and was it legal? A strike carried out by U.S. forces on a boat in the Caribbean Sea, which the White House says killed 11 drug traffickers, may have violated international human rights and maritime law, legal experts have told BBC Verify. Trump announced on Tuesday that U.S. forces destroyed a vessel which he said had departed from Venezuela. He said the boat was operated by Tren de Aragua cartel and was carrying drugs bound for the U.S. U.S. defense officials have so far declined to offer details on the strike, footage of which Trump shared on Truth Social, including what legal authority they relied upon to justify it. BBC Verify reached out to a range of experts in international and maritime law, with several saying that the U.S. may have acted illegally in attacking the vessel. The U.S. is not a signatory to the United States Convention on the Law of the Sea, but the U.S. military's legal advisors have previously said that the U.S., quote, should act in a manner consistent with its provisions. Under the convention, countries agree not to interfere with vessels operating in international waters. There are limited exceptions to this which allow a state to seize a ship, just such as a hot pursuit, where a vessel is chased from a country's waters into the high seas. Quote, force can be used to stop a boat, but generally this should be non-lethal measures, said Professor Luke Moffat of Queen's University, Belfast. But he added that the use of aggressive tactics must be, quote, reasonable and necessary in self-defense where there is an immediate threat of serious injury or loss of life to enforcement officials, noting that the U.S. moves were likely, quote, unlawful under the law of the sea. Experts have also questioned whether the killing of alleged members of Tren de Aragua cartel could contravene international law on the use of force. The UN Charter, according to the UN Charter, countries can resort to force when under attack and deploying their military in self-defense. Trump has previously accused Tren de Aragua cartel of conducting irregular warfare against the United States, and the State Department has designated the group as a foreign terrorist organization. But Professor Michael Becker of Trinity College Dublin told BBC Verify that U.S. actions, quote, stretches the meaning of the term beyond its breaking point. But the fact that U.S. officials describe the individuals killed in the U.S. strike as narco-terrorists does not transform them into lawful military targets, he said. But the U.S. is not engaged in an armed conflict with Venezuela or the Tren de Aragua criminal organization. Not only does the strike appear to have violated the prohibition on the use of force, it also runs afoul of the right to life under international human rights, to say nothing of the fact that, to my knowledge, they have not been proven. The 11 who were killed were not proven to be members of Trinidad. We just don't know that to be sure. And the Trump administration does not deserve the benefit of the doubt in pretty much any situation, including this one, I would argue. Here's another clip.
Look at Washington, D.C. 3 weeks ago. It was the same or worse. And now it's considered a totally safe zone. Restaurants are open. They're bustling. Restaurants, you have to see, restaurants were dying. Nobody wanted to go out. They didn't want to be attacked. They didn't want to be mugged.
So restaurant traffic declined since Trump ordered the D.C. National Guard in attendance. I don't know if it's risen in the past several days, but certainly it initially declined. And people are talking about how it's totally safe. Well, the fact of the matter is there was a murder Monday night. So, and people are fact-checking Trump on this all over Truth Social. So when he says there's no crime whatsoever, he's lying. He's full of shit. Here's another clip.
Going, I could do that with Chicago. We could do that with New York. We could do it with Los Angeles. So we're making a determination now. Do we go to Chicago, or do we go to a place like New Orleans, where we have a great governor, Jeff Landry, who wants us to come in and straighten out a very nice section of this country that's become quite tough.
So he refers to Baltimore and Chicago as hellholes. Then he acknowledges that in red states and places like New Orleans, there are issues, but he refuses to describe them. They're amazing, except they have some issues. And again, it's just because they happen to be in red states. As far as the question of, should you send the National Guard to states that don't want it, or should you send the National Guard, according to him, the Republican Governor Landry of Louisiana wants Trump to send the National Guard. Well, I suppose that would be preferable to Trump unilaterally sending the National Guard to a state that doesn't want it, according to state and local leadership. That would be an authoritarian use of force if you're going to deploy the Guard. And I'm not even saying he should do it in Louisiana, because, of course, Governor Landry could also deploy the National Guard since he has the Louisiana National Guard. None of this makes any sense. But if you're just going to send the National Guard to a place, yes, it would probably be preferable to send it to a place where the state and local leaders claim to want it, as opposed to Illinois. To say nothing of the fact that it was Governor Pritzker. I could have had this pulled up, but there are clips going viral. Governor Pritzker of Illinois conducted a press conference yesterday about how he's hearing rumors, pretty credible rumors, that Trump is preparing to send the Texas National Guard to Illinois over the objection of Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. That would be an insane escalation. It would be bad enough for him to try to deploy and federalize the Illinois National Guard against Governor Pritzker's orders, but for him to send another state's National Guard to a different state over the objection of the second state is insane. But that's potentially where we're going. Here's another clip.
And Karen Bass is grossly incompetent. And Newsom, this is a very incompetent guy. I watched him with the hands. I'm saying, what's going on with the hands? There's something wrong with them.
Yeah. There's something wrong with Governor Newsom. And it's true that Governor Newsom gesticulates a lot, but then so does Trump, right? He does the accordion hands, and he does the double masturbation dance. He does that shit all the time. Donald Trump I gesticulate a lot. This idea that there must be something wrong with us. I mean, I suppose there is, but that would indict you also, Trump, by comparison, given how often you use your hands. Some other clips as well. Let me see. I guess we'll close with this on tariffs. Okay. Again, Trump was asked about, Putin. When are we going to hear about next steps? Very shortly. Again, he just keeps kicking the can down the road. But we'll close on tariffs.
You talked about how historic these tariffs have been, bringing in revenue, additional revenue for our country. You've also mentioned before they could possibly replace federal income tax.
Possible.
Do you think that
Someday it's possible. It used to be. So if you go back to 1913 is when they ended tariffs. We were the richest ever from 1850. It was all tariffs. We didn't have income taxes. From 1850 to 1913. In the 1887s, about 1887, they had the Great National Tariff Act. And it was a group of people that got together because our country was so rich, they didn't know what to do with the money. We had so much money, they didn't know what to do. It was a group of very prominent people that were set up to hand out money to everybody because we were the richest we ever were, proportionately.
So again, this is totally stupid by Trump. The fact of the matter is that you can't replace the federal income tax with tariffs now because tariffs do not generate enough revenue to replace the revenue brought in by income tax. Okay, it's just we've grown far beyond that. In order to fund the federal government in anything remotely approximate to its current scale under Republican or Democratic leaders, yes, you need a federal income tax. The revenue generated simply from imports is not good enough. You couldn't get anywhere close to the level of funding you would need. So anyway, Trump, of course, again, having another disastrous Oval Office presser, seemingly getting triggered not just by reporters asking him tough questions, but by the fact that Xi of China, Modi of India, and Putin of Russia are, quote unquote, conspiring against the United States, all on his watch because of his incompetence and his failures. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.